So it's been nearly 7 months since the last playtest for XDefiant, even longer since the multi-day beta all the way back in June. So while we touched on patch notes yesterday, what else changed? Is there perhaps anything that has changed since that beta that is improvements to the game in a larger or even smaller capacity for quality of life or other adjustments? Absolutely. Today we're taking a look at those changes and things you may or may not notice that changed since the beta. So drop your thoughts, drop a like, and consider subscribing for more XDefiant and other FPS coverage. I'd love to have you in the community. For now, let's take a look at these changes. So to preface, for the most part, most of these changes are subtle. There's not many, if any, that it's like, this changes everything, but instead, it's nice touches of polish that I think builds out the experience a bit more for the player or alters it in some degree. A lot of this stuff comes in menu UI and some gameplay changes as well. So let's start out with the UI here. Firstly, one thing you may notice if you're trying to maybe refresh your memory on what all your specialist or rather faction abilities were is that there's no faction option in the menus before you jump into the game anymore. You select each faction from the in-game menus only as you're about to start. You can still swap and everything, but from that main menu, you don't have that option anymore. Also, the layout of that faction selection is a little different. Entirely different on design, but grand scheme of things still gives you all the information you need, and you can even go in a little further, of course, and get those faction details about what everything has on offer. There also is talking about tabs on the UI, no battle pass or rewards tab. The battle pass, it's kind of understood here. You're obviously going to have a 2-day test. There's not really anything that carries over from what you played this weekend into the full launch, but it is interesting that there is no tab or anything that tracks your rewards for the challenges associated with the skins and the boosters. An M9 and an MP5 skin plus boosters for your double weapon XP essentially at that point, but there's no way to really track that if you don't know those challenges already. Those being, of course, to play a match, play in a party, and then reach level 18. Now, beyond that, we have some challenge previews that changed around in placement and adding a bit more. We can end up seeing daily, base, and major challenges here based off of this build, but previously we could only see daily challenges, and they were also previewed in-game in a different position. They were all stacked on that left side here, but now it includes not only just those major and base challenges as well in-game if you hit your start button, but it's a little bit more evenly distributed across the entire screen of your selection. There's a new finding match layout where previously you had the main 3 columns, but it was a bit clunkier and not as necessarily easy on the eyes to look at. You had challenges on the left, players in the middle, and then a map voting and the news feed on the right. But the news feed was kind of like cut off where it wasn't quite visible the entire way. And now you still have those main 3, but it's better formatted. You have players on the left, challenges in the middle, map voting and news, but again, better aligned. So there's no scrolling vertically or cutoffs like that. It's more so just something that is there in one singular frame. You have new attachment images and create a class as well, that being a bit more polished that shows actual attachments rather than the barrels and the grips. The barrels just had icons associated with them, like the lightweight barrel was a feather and a couple of other sort of like just placeholder icons. Then the grips were also noticeably changed, where those were actually all just like actually tape icons, but now you have each associated grip having their own individual icons along with that. You have a new weapon leveling preview that you can end up checking, which is surprisingly like something that pops up in your last match report in your menu. So it seems like that might be queued up in a different manner. It doesn't seem like that's what should come up when you click on that, but it does, and you can see how leveling will progress. Everything right now for this 2-day test is indeed unlocked, but based off of the XP yields we have right now, it's going to take a little while to actually unlock everything in regards to those weapon levels. The leveling isn't the fastest, not the slowest, but it'll take a little bit of grinding. And I could be wrong, but in a final note here before we jump into in-game stuff is that I feel like everything's a bit more polished graphically speaking. Like, I don't know if this is just me losing my mind or not, but looking back at some of this footage from last year, it seems like there's just a better sharpness, more quality in some of the character builds and other things that you'd see across the gameplay experience. But again, I could be wrong on that one. But anyways, let's jump into some gameplay related stuff here. Firstly, one thing that was mentioned in the patch notes, but I do want to reiterate here at this because it does actually, I think, offer a lot more to the game mode itself, is those 2 sides now to escort and zone control. Escort honestly is one of those modes that, just like war, I think can be really good for ranking up come the full launch of the game, because you'll be able to kind of control how much time you want to put into each of those matches, because you have those checkpoints, you have those timers that come down for each of them, and now having 2 rounds to it is definitely something that can help out and keep you in the action rather than say, having turnover from match to match and the time out of game. Another thing that I noticed was that input-based matchmaking is now available to be selected here. To my recollection, this was a setting that we knew of and was visible in prior builds of the game. Back in June, at least, I remember I actually have footage here of this that showcased this, but it was locked and you could not opt to have it on. It was off by default in those prior playtests, but this one, it seems like you can actually do this. And input-based matchmaking was something that was previously mentioned by the developers and the official XDefiant account as something that they were working on, but it seemed like it was something that might not make it there at launch. However, it is in this build here if you'd like to experiment with that. We have new in-game medal icon pop-ups as well that gives a little bit more flair, a little bit more visual appeal to each of those medals you can end up getting. You have new icons that show the number of teammates on a capture flag as well in things like domination, which is a very beneficial thing, I think. It's a very small detail, very subtle, but it does give you enough information of, okay, my teammates are here, they're capping this, and you can use that to your advantage in some way, shape, or form. We have new network icons as well in the upper left, yellow and red. I'm assuming for amount of packet loss, and that's something that of course you want to keep an eye on. And then finally, we have some new overall kill streak counters in the upper right of that HUD, which for me, I love. I love being able to see the number of the kill streak that I'm on, because a lot of the times you kind of get lost in that moment where you're totally zoned in. And even though with XDefiant, there's nothing like a kill streak you can end up getting, I definitely think it's nice. For me as a content creator, I like to showcase the highlights. Obviously, nobody wants to see me die over and over and over and over again. That's not fun to watch. So for me, it's one thing that helps me greatly because I know, okay, this is that segment where it's a nice little streak or something like that. Love that when Modern Warfare Remastered did that, and to date, I think that's the last COD and only COD that really did that with it actually written out. So I'll take that next to find here, absolutely. But overall feelings on the game so far, as of recording this, I've probably played about 3 to 4 hours or so already. I've been playing since it launched, and obviously I'll be playing a lot more, but the game is certainly not without its flaws still. This is something that our review video here, and we're going to save a lot of this here for the review video, I think on Sunday. We're going to have a decent number of things to talk about, but maybe as a little bit of a preview, here's some of the stuff that I've noticed. Personally, though I can adjust, I still feel like aiming still has an odd feeling to it. That could just be me. That could just because for all the shit that we give it, COD genuinely does have some of the most fluid mechanics and have essentially perfected those kind of fundamentals. It's like why everything's the COD standard. I died around walls more times than I could count, so I'm not sure if that's a matchmaking simple match connection issue or if it's a byproduct of the new netcode system at large, which may not necessarily be a good sign. There's been plenty of bugs that I've seen. One that I've seen talked about a lot is controllers just not working on PC, to which I've seen devs suggest almost a priority of USB devices. Like, for example, Zach or Immortal jumped on to play with me, and he had the issue, but it was his foot pedal for muting and deafening in Discord that basically took priority as the USB input, so his controller wasn't recognized at all. Unplugged that, he was totally fine. So a lot of weird, smaller stuff still persists, but honestly, I'm just happy to be playing again here since September was the last time we had hands-on, even earlier for me and others that may have missed that 12-hour test. But I don't want to get too far into it. Again, I'll save this for a review video here probably on Sunday, breaking it all down. But for the love of God, the only thing that I would recommend to you guys is please don't consider this or make this out to be a COD killer. You'll just simply disappoint yourself. COD competitor or alternative, maybe, sure, it's a fun additional game to play, but don't go into this thinking this is gonna topple COD, gameplay-wise or player-base-wise, because it's not gonna happen. But anyways, that is some adjustments here from changes from the beta to where we are now. A lot of the content obviously is still exactly the same, but it's nice to see that in that time, on top of trying to rebuild a netcode system, a social system, that we're seeing some things in terms of quality of life and some polish being added in as well. So it's not the exact same game that you played back in September or June, even though it may feel like it, there are still those things that add on top of it or slightly adjust the game from then to now. But for now, that's where we're gonna wrap it up. So let me know your thoughts down below. What do you guys think of these changes here for XDefiant? Like them, dislike them, whatever the case, drop your thoughts. But if you enjoyed the video, you found it at all insightful, do me a favor and drop a like on it. And if you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss a single thing regarding all things XDefiant and other FPS coverage. I'd love to have in the community. But for now, thanks so much for watching. Mine has been Espresso. I'll see you later. Take care and peace.